Growing up on the west side of Colorado Springs, we didn't live very far from Fairview Cemetery, and on sunny summer evenings we would walk with Dad through the cemetery looking at the gravestones. On them there was a name and often two dates. For instance, my grandfather, Eric Speidel, was born May 16, 1908. Then there would be a dash, and at the date August 21, 1960. Then we would talk about the dash, just a short symbol for a lifetime of events and memories. Many obituaries have a list of a person's life's events and accomplishments from an earthly perspective. But I'm not going to do that for my mom, for she lived with a heavenly perspective. Born in Vineland, New Jersey on December 8, 1948, my mother, Judith Ellen Kempe, grew up in a large community surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins. At a small age, she gave her life to the Lord and grew up always having a desire to serve Him. On July 19, 1976, she married our dad, Steve, and they began life together at 714, Dad's longtime residence. My mother is survived by her loving husband, Stephen Eric Speidel, 3 daughters, Julie Ellen Griffiths and her husband Matt, Jenny Irene Westergen, her husband Mike, and sons James, Colin, and Timothy, and Stephanie Rose Brown and her husband Charlie and their children Matthew, Christy, and Cassie, and little baby Brown. Her sister-in-law Gail and niece Glenda, adopted granddaughter Caitlin, and many, many more family and friends. She was preceded in death by her parents, Russell and Myrtle Kempe, and 2 brothers, Russell and Lorne. We girls were my mom's life, and she invested a lot of time and effort into us, along with Dad, to teach and equip us for the life ahead. Mom taught us to laugh at ourselves. I remember even as an adult doing something that so mortified myself that I didn't ever want to show my face again. I was stopped by Moms to cry on her shoulder. As I began my sob story, she would start to grin and then try to hide it. Then she would start to laugh until tears were streaming down her face. I couldn't do anything but join her, and before we knew, we were both laughing at each other, laughing so much that all the embarrassment disappeared and the whole event was put back into its correct perspective. I remember one Thanksgiving with Uncle Russell and Aunt Gail and their family before Jimmy died. We played a game of dictionary, and the definitions got crazier and crazier till the tears were pouring down our faces. Mom about passed out from laughter when Uncle Russell got a Charlie horse in his leg and had to stand up to try to remove it because he was laughing so hard at Aunt Gail's pithy description of the musical term slargando. As usual, we all ended up laughing at Mom, laughing at Uncle Russell, laughing with the Charlie horse because he was laughing at Aunt Gail. Dad had to take his glasses off to wipe his eyes. There was nothing my mom appreciated more than a good dramatic story, and she made an appreciative audience for a good storyteller. I remember one time when Steph and Charlie's brother Kevin came to visit us at Mom and Dad's. Kev was elaborating on a huge adventure older brother Charlie took him and his sisters on. The story included a large boat on a large lake in Utah with Charlie's interjections and corrections to the story. By the time Kev got to the description of Charlie's frustration that the 10th large black garbage bag, Charlie was sure it was 12, of stuff that his sisters thought they needed for their lake holiday, Mom was laughing so hard she had to lean on the counter so she wouldn't fall over. My mom was always ready to try new things. I remember one summer I decided I needed to learn how to hit a ball for baseball. Mom had always liked that game, so she was sure that she could teach me. So on a nice, warm summer's evening, we got out in our backyard and Mom picked up the bat and took the batter's stance. She crouched like a pro and prepared to hit the ball that Dad was pitching for her. Dad threw it nice and easy. Wanting to get it up to the park, she hit it with all her might, right into Dad's eye. The force knocked him over, and for a moment, she thought she had killed him. After we ascertained that he was okay, Mom couldn't stop laughing especially when Dad sported the biggest ever shiner and would tell people who asked, "What happened to your eye?" "Oh, my wife hit me." Dad could have had enough adventures by himself, but when his brother was with him, they were doubled. One time when both of them were well into their 50s, they decided that they were too old and too tired, and it was going to be too much effort to hike up this mountain road in snow. They both agreed wordlessly that Dad's four-wheel drive pickup truck with Dad at the wheel and Uncle David in the passenger side with the window rolled down and his arm hanging out to give directions was quite competent enough to make it. The rest of us didn't have the confidence that they had, so we all got out to watch. Mom and Aunt Sally were standing by the road. Having both been married to the Spidle brothers for quite a few years, they were preparing to pick up the pieces. They knew they were in for a good show. Dad backed up, hit the gas, and hit the slight incline, wheels spinning. Immediately, the truck started sliding sideways and the back wheels started to slide off the road. Mom and Aunt Sally were warning them not to get stuck. The more the wheels span, the more they slid towards the ditch. Just before completely going off the road, they decided to reverse back down. Mom and Aunt Sally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that they had had enough. Nope, that was not enough. Dad turned the truck around, Uncle David's idea, and tried going up the road backwards. By that time, Aunt Sally and Mom saw the funny side and started laughing. By the time the truck got wedged into a tree, Mom and Aunt Sally were laughing so hard they were doubled over. I remember when Mom's cousins would come to visit her. They would stay up to the wee hours of the morning talking and laughing their heads off. It was as if time had slipped out the windows and they would settle in for a good chat, which was mainly telling funny stories and catching up with family news. When Rachel, Stuff's best friend, would come for a visit, they would spend the entire time laughing. I had absolutely no idea what was so funny, but that didn't bother Mom. If someone was laughing, she would join in and laugh harder than anyone. I remember seeing Mom almost bent over double, standing in the corner of the kitchen where she liked to stand. I asked her what she was laughing at. She just shrugged and shook her head and went on laughing. When the grandkids visited, they would sweet-talk Grandma into riding their motorbikes or pedal bikes or take her for a ride on their four-wheelers. She could be persuaded in jumping on the trampoline with them as well. After I moved to Northern Ireland, I would wake up and check my phone to see what I had missed while I was sleeping. For instance, one morning I found a video clip that showed Mom was roaring around a little Matthews motorbike. Mom never wanted to be left out, and if that meant learning how to use Snapchat filters, she would. One day, I woke up to over 100 text messages. The first one showed a picture of my mother in a pilot's uniform sporting a beard. She had found the Snapchat filters. During one of my Stuff's last visits with my mom, we were video chatting and Stuff was holding the phone so I could talk with Mom. She kept falling asleep. She mentioned weekly about us being so boring that she kept drifting off. We started teasing her about it. The last time I was able to talk with her, thanks to Glenda, I told her this story. Everyone who knows my husband knows that he loves two things after God and me, and they are chocolate and guitars. He had just gotten a new to him Martin acoustic guitar before Christmas, so I was telling Mom about it. I said, "Oh, and Martin has to come to bed with us. He has stood in the corner of the bedroom on his stand." Even though she was in pain and couldn't speak, she gave a good chuckle at that. My mom loved to bake goodies for the appreciative, and my husband was very appreciative. After we were married and living across the alley from my mom and dad, I would get home from work, only to meet my husband heading to my mom's. I would ask him, "Where in the world are you going?" "Oh, your mom texted me," he replied. "She has some homemade goodies she wants me to sample." So I would tag along just to make sure that he wouldn't eat the whole loaf of banana bread before supper and that I would get my share. As Matt as well as all of us dearly remembered Mom's Christmas morning rolls as well. She also loved to make chocolate chip cookies with the grandchildren, mess and all. I have a picture of Colin when he is 4 years old, helping Grandma make cookies. He is standing on a chair in his PJs with a dish towel tied under his arms. There was flour all over the counter, his face and his hair, and he has the most blissful look on his face. I don't know if the attraction was in the making or the eating, but it didn't take long for 4 dozen freshly baked homemade chocolate chip cookies to disappear between 3 little boys. When you were at Grandma's, cookies were a good substitute for breakfast. Mom didn't like to cook that much, but she did love to make cakes. We got some fabulous birthday cakes as kids, including a treehouse. There is a picture of Mom making a birthday cake for Jenny and me when we were 2 and 4. She is hovering over the kitchen table, icing the cake. Jenny and I are in our booster seats, pulled 6 feet away from the table so that our little fingers wouldn't get into the cake. Mom and Dad knew how to throw a picnic at a moment's notice, and we would usually take KFC or Subway and go to Bear Creek Park or Red Rocks Canyon on a summer's evening. Caitlin told me that they were so meaningful to her that whenever she smells KFC, she thinks of Grandma and her picnics. I grew up hearing Mom's stories about the great family reunions that would take place on the old family farm in New Jersey. They started in the late 19-teens and lasted until the farm was sold. There would be week-long events of laughter, pranks, jokes, and good food. When the time came to leave, those departing would be sent off with a flurry of waving white rags, a tradition that I received when I left Colorado Springs in 2019. Just after her dad died in 2007, Mom was lying in bed early one morning. The morning sun was streaming through the windows, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. She looked up, and hovering above her bed were 3 large air bubbles like clouds. In the first bubble was her mother, the second her father, and the third her brother Russell. She said they all looked so young and healthy, and they were laughing and talking and having a good time. As she looked at them, they looked back, and all beckoned for her to come and join them. There's a song I used to listen to as a child, and Matt's gonna sing it now. invited to the greatest reunion in heaven, one that will never end. The Lord himself is the chef, the cake and the cookie baker. He will prepare a feast of the finest foods. Brothers and sisters and family and friends from the east and the west and the north and the south will gather. There will be the choicest cuts of meat and the finest of aged wine. The Lord himself will wipe away all our tears, for there will be no more pain or sorrow, and there will be no more absences, separations, or empty chairs as we sit down with Jesus at the head of the table. The laughter and the joy and the love, the crack, as they say here, will be out of this world, and it will last forever. So, Mom, for the last time, I will say goodbye. For when we meet next time, we will never, ever have to part again.